everyone, Sissa here. Just wanted to update you a little bit on NaNoWriMo for 2019 and then talk a little bit about what kind of things you can do to your manuscript or your draft to make sure you have something interesting that people are going to want to read. Usually I can't come out here in front of my bookshelf and do the obligatory bookshelf video, but today I don't have the dog and cat running around me like crazy doing crazy things, so instead I was like, let me come sit in front of my bookshelf like the other author tubers I see out here. So I thought I'd come out here and, you know, have a nice backdrop this time. So what I wanted to talk about was, I'm actually 3 days behind on NaNoWriMo. Hopefully I can catch up. It is going to be a little bit difficult for me to catch up being 3 days behind, but I'm hoping that over the next, few days or so with the weekend and everything, I should be able to catch up. It's gonna be a little difficult, but I have faith in myself that I could at least get close to being caught up, if not caught up and maybe a little ahead. I have noticed that pretty much every single day except for one day I've been behind the word count. I think Saturday I met my word count. That was like day 2? Yeah, day 2 I think I met the word count goal, but after that I just got behind and it was hard to catch up. So I'm working on trying to catch up now. I'm somewhere around 5,500 words and this is I might be around 6,000 words now, but this is day 7 of NaNoWriMo, so I'm supposed to be, I think, around 8,000-ish, something like that, and I'm definitely behind on that. But I'm gonna keep going, keep plugging away, and I'll get caught up. Oh, by the way, don't worry, I don't usually have a burning candle next to my books. I just wanted to add a little ambiance to my video. So I brought my candle out here while I was talking, which is nice. So what I did want to talk about regarding some writing tips, because I figured I wouldn't just make this video about NaNoWriMo, is what I tell my students when it comes to writing narratives. You don't want a boring story. You don't want boring characters, flat characters. You need dynamic characters who make some kind of change in their lives, some kind of growth or development throughout the story. You need to make sure that character has learned something from whatever conflict he or she has gone through. And you want to make it interesting. You want to make sure that your readers are caught up in it. They don't necessarily have to be able to relate to the conflict, but you want them to be able to relate to the character. So make sure you're writing a character who's interesting, who's dynamic, who has multiple facets to his or her personality. Just make that person interesting and relatable somehow. Also, you want to make sure that you start your story in the right place so that your reader doesn't get lost along the way. You need some kind of setup at the beginning. The exposition should be where you introduce the main characters that we need to know. Who are we going to follow through the story? Introduce those characters. And also you want to introduce some part of the conflict, some part of the plot. It doesn't have to be the main part of the plot, but it has to be some kind of conflict, some kind of drama, some kind of incident where we're going to be wrapped up and invested in what's happening to this character, this protagonist that you've created. So make it interesting and introduce some of it at the beginning. I've heard a lot of people in their videos give you the advice not to do backstories, or be careful about how you do backstories, and also not to info dump. And that is very accurate. You do not want to force too much information on your reader. You want to make sure that you drop little seedlings here and there as you write your story. The book that I'm writing now for NaNoWriMo is hopefully the book I'm actually going to finish. There's been multiple novels I've started in the past and I get so far, I get stuck, I get busy, and I don't finish. So I want to make sure with this one I'm actually finishing. I have this one planned out, pretty much all of the conflicts, the major conflicts anyway. I know there's probably going to be some minor conflicts that come up as I'm writing. Like the scene that I'm writing now, I had not previously envisioned this scene, but I want to make sure that I know exactly where I'm going with this so I don't drop it. But in the last novel that I was working on, which I plan to get back to after NaNoWriMo and after I finish this novel, that story had some necessary info dumping that was in it. And after I was going through other people's videos and their experiences, and what to avoid and what not to avoid, and what to include and what not to include, I learned that I probably info dumped in that exposition for my other novel. So I'm probably going to go back through that and clean that up a little bit. I think my protagonist's backstory is important, so I do have to include it somehow, but I think that there's another way I should be able to go through and include it. This particular novel I'm working on now, I do hope that I get it traditionally published, but I have a self-published book, and I didn't market it very well, and I didn't sell very many copies of it. So that's okay, not a big deal, but it is out there, and it made me feel proud. But I think this particular book that I'm working on, I'm a lot closer to. I have more hope for it, more emotion invested into it. I am more focused on getting this one written and finished. So I'm trying to heed the advice of others and heed my own advice. The advice is the same advice I'm giving here. So that's one of the things I tell my students. You need to make your characters interesting and make your story interesting. Obviously, middle school students have a bit more struggle with trying to make an interesting plot, so this may not apply to you, but I do know that I have read those types of narratives, and what I'm seeing there is that sometimes people get stuck in a loop. They keep talking about the same thing over and over again. They don't know how to move on from a particular incident or a particular scene, or maybe you've written a character into your story who doesn't play a major part, just plays a minor part, and you're not sure how to move away from that character. But at some point, you are going to have to figure out how to not write in circles. You want to make sure you're constantly moving your plot forward, that you're making it interesting and your character's interesting, and everything you have written into your story is for a purpose. So you want to make sure that you don't write something into your story and forget about that piece and then have your readers wondering, why did I even have to read about that? What was the point of that if nothing is going to happen with it? So it's like Chekhov's loaded gun theory, that if a loaded gun is sitting on the coffee table, at some point in the story, the readers or the audience expect that loaded gun to go off. So do try to remember that anything you put in your story should serve a purpose. So you don't want to add in some kind of social commentary if it doesn't serve your plot or your character. So if there's something that you're adding into your story, a brand plug of some kind, or because kids like video games and I want to write my video game into my story, again, this is going back to the middle schoolers I teach, or any type of brand you enjoy in your life that you want to write into your story. Just make sure if you're doing that, it's for a purpose. It should relate to your character or to your plot. You don't want to just put it in the story because you like it as a person. It should serve a purpose. So everything that you put in your story should have a purpose. It should be interesting. It should help with character development, or it should drive the plot forward. So keep that in mind. This video is getting long enough, so I'm going to sign off, but I just wanted to send that out there into the to YouTube world today. Have a good day, everyone.